Pancreatic cancer is one of the absolute deadliest forms of the disease. And for decades, figuring out what causes it has been a huge scientific puzzle. Today, we're going to dive into that puzzle, and we're focusing on a group that's been disproportionately demanding answers: our military veterans. This statement, wow, it's from the family of Amy Muller, and it just cuts right to the heart of what we're talking about today. It's a story about the hidden costs of war, where the deadliest wounds don't always come from the battlefield, but sometimes from the very air you breathe. So, to really get a handle on this hidden toll, we have to start with a personal story that basically kicked off a nationwide conversation. So, meet Amy Muller. She was this vibrant 36-year-old mother of three, and her diagnosis of stage 3 pancreatic cancer was a complete shock. Not just because she was so young, but because the typical age for this disease is 71. That's a huge difference. Her time serving at Joint Base Balad in Iraq, where she was exposed day in and day out to a massive open-air burn pit, led her family and her doctors to suspect that something in the environment had to be the trigger. Amy's story really is the jumping-off point. It forces all of us to look much closer at the potential causes and unpack the really complex science behind the risk factors for this devastating disease. So what exactly were these burn pits? Just try to picture this. Massive, open fires, some covering acres of land, burning 24/7. And they were used to get rid of everything. We're talking plastics, medical waste, jet fuel, electronics, you name it. This whole process just spewed a toxic cocktail of known carcinogens, things like benzene, formaldehyde, and dioxins, right into the air that our service members were breathing every single day. And this right here is where the story gets really complicated. On one side, you have these powerful, just heartbreaking stories like Amy Muller's. And those stories have, quite rightly, led to major policy changes like the PACT Act. But on the other side, the large-scale scientific studies have really struggled to find a definitive statistical link, especially for pancreatic cancer. And that gap right there between personal experience and scientific proof, that's the central challenge. All right, so we've talked about the risks. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the disease itself, because understanding why it's so tough is absolutely key. So, at its most basic level, pancreatic cancer starts when cells in the pancreas just start growing out of control. And this is so dangerous because the pancreas is this super important organ, kind of tucked away behind the stomach. It's responsible for making enzymes we need for digestion and critical hormones like insulin, which, as you know, keeps our blood sugar in check. Now, the first thing you need to know is that pancreatic cancer isn't just one thing. There are two main types, and they are worlds apart. As you can see here, about 95% of cases are something called pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma, or PDAC. It starts in the ducts, and it is notoriously aggressive. The other 5% are neuroendocrine tumors, PNETs, which come from hormone-producing cells and are often much slower growing with a better outlook. And if you want to understand why this fight is so incredibly urgent, you just need to look at this number. For PDAC, that most common type, the 5-year survival rate is just 12%. That is a staggering statistic, and it's exactly why every bit of progress in treatment is so critical. But, and this is a big but, despite those incredibly tough numbers, there is hope. The fight against pancreatic cancer is moving forward, with new strategies that are offering patients more time and a better quality of life. Okay, so for the lucky few whose cancer is caught early enough for surgery, the fight is far from over. The chemotherapy that's given after the tumor is removed, what doctors call adjuvant therapy, is absolutely essential for improving the odds of surviving long term. And this chart? Wow, this really shows you the progress we've made. For years, a chemo drug called gemcitabine was the standard, and it gave patients about 35 months of median survival after surgery. But now look at the impact of a newer combo therapy, FOLFIRINOX. It has pushed that median survival to over 53 months. That's a leap of a year and a half. In this field, that is a massive victory. And today's approach isn't a one-size-fits-all deal anymore. It's more like a multi-pronged attack. It can involve really complex surgeries, like the Whipple procedure, advanced chemo and radiation, and more, personalized medicine. We're talking targeted therapies for patients with specific gene mutations and specialized drugs for those with the rarer neuroendocrine tumors.
Okay, so let's bring this all back home, back to the veterans at the very heart of this story. With this complex medical reality in mind, how is the system actually responding to them?
Well, the biggest answer is the PACT Act of 2022. And this thing is a huge deal. It is truly landmark legislation. Its whole purpose is to tear down the barriers for veterans who were exposed to toxic stuff like burn pits and get them the healthcare and the benefits that they earned. And the way the law works is through something called a presumptive condition. And this is a total game changer. It means that if a veteran has a certain illness and served in a specific place at a specific time, the VA just automatically assumes the illness is connected to their service. It basically flips the script. The veteran no longer has to carry that impossible burden of scientifically proving the connection all by themselves. So, what does this actually look like for a veteran with pancreatic cancer? It's basically a three-step process, and it's designed to be straightforward. First, the VA verifies their service, say in post 9/11 Iraq or Afghanistan. Second, the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer is confirmed, and it's really important to note this covers both the common PDAC and the rare or PNUTs. And third, the connection is presumed. Boom. That unlocks the door to VA healthcare and disability benefits, and it does it fast. And really, this is the bottom line for veterans and their families. The PACT Act isn't waiting around for every last scientific detail to be ironed out. It acknowledges the evidence, it listens to the stories of veterans, and it provides a direct path to care right now. It's building a bridge to support them while the research community continues its vital work to find the exact causes. So policy has stepped up to create a path to care for those who served. But that deep scientific mystery? It's still there. The story of pancreatic cancer and burn pits is a really powerful reminder that the consequences of our actions can take years, even decades, to surface. And it leaves us with a pretty critical question. As our world gets more complex, what other hidden risks are out there, just waiting to be uncovered?